So what we doing here today is we honoring our black peoples, whether they Muslim or not. Because Allah in the Holy Quran, in Surah 4, verse 75, he says, what's the matter with you? That you don't fight in the path of Allah. And the weak and oppressed, from the men and the women and the children, are calling out, oh God, save us from this nation whose people are oppressors. This is an ayat in the Holy Quran. And it's describing the United States of America. And so as Muslims, we got to stop being in our masjid, looking the other way. Because Allah is asking us, why you not getting involved? And what we gonna say? We can't get involved because they Negroes. That's what we gonna say? Because if we don't say nothing, then that's what we really saying. Because we'll see black oppression and we won't do nothing about it. And so as Muslims, it's our job to come out and stand up for black people. This is in the Holy Quran. This ain't no hadith. Somebody might be like, well, I don't know that hadith. I don't know the chain of narrators. This is a verse in the Holy Quran. So with that, I'm going to turn the mic back over to Sister Aaliyah Sharif, my co-host. We all know Sister Aaliyah from the Women's March. She was on a national, international platform representing for the Ummah. Allahu Akbar.
MashaAllah, thank you so much. It is all one Ummah unity. First up, we would like to welcome Sister Babawa. She is incredible. The sister is educated, and please believe you're going to learn from this African-American sister in the Ummah. Please listen to her words. Let them penetrate your heart. Sister.
Thank you, sister. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum. I made it. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, wake up. Assalamu alaikum. Don't be scared. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah. Okay, so I'm been asked to talk about Juneteenth. And first I'd like to just give a little bit of a history, the one that's not in the history book, of what Juneteenth is. And so Juneteenth, as we know, started with the signing with emancipation, all that other stuff, right? And relieving enslaved people from slavery in this country. Chattel slavery. I kind of talked a little bit about that once before. So when we take a look at what Juneteenth is, and it is a time when the emancipation was signed, when the document was signed, it didn't get to Texas until way sometime later. So some say, what happened to the messenger that was supposed to send the message to the folks to let them know that enslavement was over? Well, let's take a look back at the economy and look back at the money when it gets down to it, and having people to work for free. That's what it was all about. They're like, no, we're not letting you go. And they kept people working for free. People did not know that it was signed. The other piece of it is taking a look at the horrors that did happen during this part in terms of why Juneteenth for so many people was really special. Because during that period of time, the enslaved owners knew that their time was coming to an end. They knew that their time for work and free labor was coming to a close. So it became more intensified than what they talk about in the history books. The abuse became more intensified than what they're talking about. And so all these folks, when that time came, when the message came, African-American people were told that you have the right to have your freedoms. You have the right to own property. All these different rights that began to happen. However, it didn't go down like that. It went down with the fight. It wasn't a matter of like somebody signed a piece of paper and yay, and everybody is free, let's celebrate. It didn't happen like that. How what happened was lynchings went up, and we've seen modern day lynchings. We've seen what happened. We've seen the abuse. We've seen lots of things that's been going on now was happening then, and it was much more intense. So I talked to my sister, actually, his wife, which is my best friend, and I said, yeah, what else can I talk about? She said, well, you shared stories about your grandparents and your great-grandparents. Share that. So after this time was over, my grandfather and great-grandfather, they owned property, and they owned cattle, and were proud and worked hard as a community to establish their newfound freedom, right, as enslaved folks, and began to develop so that this piece about developing this community among themselves, where they're able to have land, feed each other, and to grow and to prosper so quickly after all this was signed. Well, what happened was that we talked before about lynch squads that would come in. And so these lynch squads came in to the land and terrorized the people, terrorized my grandmother, grandfather, great-grandparents, stole the land, stole the cattle, and to this very day, if you look up Lone Star, Texas Meatpacking Company, that's where it came from. It came from stolen property. Even the cattle were stolen. Even the breeded cattle were stolen. And to this very day, people are prospering from that. So when we take a look at the celebration that happened within Juneteenth, it was people's beginning to understand and say that, you know, we have these rights and liberties for ourselves. And so the celebration is rooted in the belief and the understanding that we can do for self and that we can grow. And that brings me to the point, and I didn't tell me how long I have to talk, so that like wave your hand. Yeah. So, and which brings me to the point today in terms of going to the Juneteenth celebrations. It's not just a matter of enjoying a great party and enjoying the beautiful culture that we have as African Americans here in this country, enjoying the music, but also listening to the lectures and taking an extra step of looking at the history and what the history really means, and supporting black businesses. Because let's be true, and I heard the brother mention that earlier, is that having to start over and over again. Just the same thing with my forefather and mother had the property and built up, and I thought to myself, how did they do that? How did they work so hard? Because nobody gave them the land, they had to pay for it. So they had to work hard, whatever they earned collectively, or be able to pay for it, to pay for the land, to pay for the cattle. Nobody gave them that stuff for free. And then to have it ripped away and stolen away, and then we look at black businesses now having to constantly go back and have things that are stolen and then rebuilt, stolen and rebuilt. But the rebuild part is what's important. And that's the part that we always come back to. That's where we're at right now. Today, at this very time, we have an opportunity before us as we have always had. Yes, it's a struggle. Yes, we take a look at Juneteenth and the history and what it really means, but it's also doing what we can to support your African-American brothers and sisters, no matter where you're from around the globe. Muslim, non-Muslim, they're your fellow humans. We have a shared experience. We breathe the same air that Allah has given us. We live in this place all together, and we need to support each other. When we find and see people who are oppressed like this, folks like that are oppressed for a reason. You think about the strength and the dignity and the power that this community has had. And then we take a look at your black Muslim brothers and sisters, and looking at that in terms of how we can go about supporting and helping one another. We take a look at our economy and the wealth that we have within ourselves and our faith. Our demonstration of faith is what calls people to Islam. And our demonstration of not being nice to folks, not treating each other humanely, is one thing that repelled people. So we're in the business of wanting to attract and recruit people into Islam, based upon our behavior and based upon what we do. And that is how the life that we live by, which is something which is so important. We have to demonstrate who we are. I know that I think that to myself. I know one day that I won't be standing here. Some of my sisters are going to be the one washing me and shrouding me. And I want to be able, when I stand before Allah, say that I did my deed. I did what I was supposed to do to the best of my abilities, and forgive me for my sins and my misdeeds and wrongdoings. And I know that we all want it to be that way. So when we think about Juneteenth, it's more than just a celebration. That celebration is rooted in a lot of pain and a lot of joys of overcoming some of the most difficult, heinous things that a group of people in this country, next to our Native American sisters and brothers, have ever endured. Ever, historically, for centuries, over and over again. So do take a look in terms of that, of what that means and why this celebratory day is important for members of our community. And where are we going to go next? And that's my question to you. And my question to myself is that enjoy the celebrations. If you can, Berkeley's going to do it virtually this year. It's on the internet. I don't know how it's going to go. That'd be interesting. And so, what the basis is to support African American communities and businesses and one another, and be kind to your fellow human. That's the only thing I can think of. There's times when I get in my hand and say, be kind to our fellow human. And we find that today that may not be as easy as it sounds. So, thank you. Alhamdulillah, bin alameen. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah.
Give it up for Sister Baba, please. Knowledge. So next we're going to have Dr. Hatem. Before he comes up, I wanted to mention, the sister mentioned the pain that we experience as well as the joy from this day. Of course, we're celebrating Juneteenth because it's, as defined, it says it's the day that officially slavery was over in America. But that actually isn't true. Do you know that in 2013, there was a clerical error that they missed in Mississippi, that they realized that Mississippi actually did not ratify slavery, and it just became free legally of slavery in 2013. We also have to be very, very mindful of the 13th Amendment. Is anybody familiar with the 13th Amendment? Can I show of hands? 13th Amendment? Okay, so if you're familiar with the 13th Amendment, it says that there is no slavery or servitude except if a person has committed a crime. So that traces back to the prison system, because those people that committed a crime are looked at to be by state slaves. So though we celebrate this day, we do have a lot more to fight for, because something like the 13th Amendment, which you guys can also check out that documentary, Angela Davis is in it, and it explains how that is still attributing slavery to this country. So while we are free, we still are not free. And all of us, black, brown, yellow, purple, blue, have to stand up and make sure that we speak upon this, or slavery is still going to be legal in this country. Can I get an Ameen? Ameen. Dr. Hatem.
Assalamu alaikum. Actually, I'm going to introduce Councilwoman Cheryl Davila. She's our host for this event. Helped us get the Civic Center, so I'm going to turn to her to give her to speak and to welcome us and to speak about Juneteenth and what it means. So please welcome Councilwoman Cheryl Davila.
Hello, hello. It's beautiful to see everyone out here on such a beautiful day and an honorable occasion. Juneteenth, the day that slaves found out that they were free. Although it's really sad, because black people in America still aren't free, right? It's really sad and kind of frightening sometimes, but it's also, I mean, I don't know, it's like, I can't imagine that we're here today, you know? I mean, in 14 when I got elected, and 45 did too, that was just like an incredible moment. But now we're in such another incredible moment, you know? And we have to take every advantage and do everything that we can in this moment in time, because we might not have another chance. The climate is happening, right? And we're facing that catastrophe. Black Lives Matter is such an important topic right now, and has been for 400 years, right? Slavery ended, supposedly, but nobody is free. We've been like locked up in either in a cage or silenced or siloed. There's so many ways that we've been oppressed that we have to fight and stand up. I mean, civil rights happened, but now look, 45's taking a lot of our rights away, and we can't let that happen. We can't be silenced anymore. We have to change our trajectory for the future. It's just incredible. I mean, we had ropes hanging in Oakland. You know, I mean, people are being lynched all around this country right now. That's just like, I mean, sometimes my mom passed away like 11 years ago or so, and I say my sister and I say all the time that if she were alive today, we would have been like having to bail her out of jail. She would have been like, you know, up in somebody's face, getting arrested. You know, she was just such a champion for civil rights. So and here I am, you know, I feel like the ancestors are keeping me up and helping me along this way, because this is something that I never thought I would do, never had a clue, and here I am. And it's just an incredible time to be an elected official, you know, even though I'm in my corner by myself. My office is right up there on the 5th floor in the corner, which I haven't been to in several months now because I'm not entering, well, I had to enter the building last week, but other than that, I'm not. But the injustice of racism in this country hasn't changed for me as a black woman being an elected official. It's documented on the Zoom if you watch the meetings. It was documented in City Hall across the street at the BUSD. So it's like we have to do something really to change how racism, we have to eliminate racism, erase racism. We all should be united and in solidarity with each other. We have to stand up for Palestine. That's how I got here. And I'm happy to do that every day, 24/7. I'm happy to stand up for black people as a black woman. It's just incredible that we still have to fight so hard. You know, I mean, I always wanted to have a house. I always wanted to do these things. But as a black woman who was smart and didn't take mess, I won't say a bad word, it's been difficult. And why? Only because of the color of my skin. I mean, I knew that then, but I even know it more now. When I graduated from high school, I got a degree in African American Studies. It was one of the first, like when every community college and colleges opened up those departments. And so, but then when I graduated, I couldn't even put it on my resume because I lived in a Republican county in New York State. And just until 10 years ago, I was like, oh, I can put that on my resume now. And I did, but that's the ways that we're oppressed, you know? And that's just the life of people of color, black people in America. So here we are. It's really wonderful to see you. Hatem, thank you for having this event today on Juneteenth. I was just trying to go to the longshoremen's action today. And I turned, you know, I've never gone to that part of West Oakland. I mean, it's probably the second time, I've lived here for 39 years, that I've ever gone down to that part of town. So I turned right on from Mandela Parkway onto Grand. I turned left onto Folger, turned right onto 7th Street. I drive, and there's this pothole that I cannot avoid. A car next to me freaking blew out my tire. So I couldn't go to be part of the car march today. And that really, but you know, I spent like an hour and a half in the car with my daughter, so that was beautiful. So you have to just make the best of every moment, right? And that's where we are. We have to make the best of every moment, stand up for civil rights, stand up for black lives matter. Stand up for Palestinian rights. Stand up against Islamophobia, xenophobia, all the phobias in this world. And unite as a nation and as a world, because that's the only way we're going to survive COVID. And then we have COVID on top of that, where we're all wearing masks. There was a point in time a little while ago where we weren't even allowed to wear masks in this park. We would have gotten like arrested or cited or whatever. And now look, everybody has a mask on. So things change, and we have to be able to adjust, but we have to stand in solidarity with each other every day and be united. Thank you. Have a blessed day. Stay healthy. Be happy. Love yourselves. Love each other. Thank you.
We have the Vice Chair of the Peace and Justice Commission, George Lipman.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hatem, and what an honor to be here. Zuma. Assalamu alaikum. And to be here with the Honorable Cheryl Davila. I am the Vice Chair of the Peace and Justice Commission, and what is that? That is an official city commission that looks out every day for the human rights and social justice of the city of Berkeley and all its people and all people everywhere. Now, I'm not supposed to speak for that commission because it's just an advisory commission to the city of Berkeley government. So I'll speak for myself, and I can speak to some extent for the human rights-oriented people of the city of Berkeley. I don't know how many people are from Berkeley, it doesn't matter. Because we're all one in unity. Human rights is what we're all struggling for, and they're indivisible. We go by the international framework of human rights, and that's the civil rights, political rights, economic, social, and cultural rights. And therefore, every city, every state, and every nation around this world, and they're indivisible. Now, what did I want to say?
Okay, keep going.
All right. If I may quote Malcolm X, he said, "Stop talking about the South." He said, "As long as you're south of the Canadian border, you're south." He was talking about places like New York, Chicago, Detroit. I just want to say, we're south. Here in Berkeley, we're south. We have a lot of problems here that are human rights problems. And we can't let our folks with silver tongues who are saying, yes, I believe in Black Lives Matter. Yes, racism is deeply embedded. Yes, we must stand up against that. And we must have a study commission to figure out how. We cannot let them say that they're so concerned about what happens in Minneapolis and not focus on what we are doing in our city. So I'm focused a lot on the police for the last 10 years. So it's wonderful to see people fighting for freedom, fighting for the worth and the value of everyone in the Black community, in the Muslim community, in the Latino community. These rights are indivisible. But when we look at the numbers, because now we have statistics from the police department of whom they're stopping. And I want to tell you the two pandemics are coming together. What are the two pandemics? The pandemic of COVID-19 and the pandemic of racist police violence. So I was able to spend yesterday looking at the latest numbers from the pandemic era. When we look at the metric, and I'm sorry to have to throw a little math in here, but during the last 13 weeks of the pandemic, the number of African Americans who were stopped by the police in Berkeley, when no one is supposed to be going out of their house, 300 people. The number of white civilians was half that, 145. And you know there are not twice as many African Americans in Berkeley as there are whites. It's about 6% African Americans and about 60% whites. So what's happening when we're sleeping, when we're confined to our houses, when the commissions are not allowed to meet, when the task force on racial disparities is not allowed to meet? This is what's happening out in the streets. I'm not here to demonize anybody, but we have a lot of work to do. We in the white community, we have a lot of work to do. I see people waking up and speaking, but we have a long ways to go. And it's a beginning to say, we recognize how our privilege is based on slavery. We realize how our police department that's out there and does a pretty good job for us is based on the slave patrols, and we have two Berkeleys when it comes to policing. And when people talk about disparities, what does that mean? It means racial profiling. If you have a disparity, you are profiling. And that's true in policing, that's true in health, it's true in housing, it's true in education, it's true in labor, and it's true in the environment across the board. These are the things that we are fighting about, and again, it is a great honor to be at this wonderful event. We want to work, this commission is your commission. It is your Peace and Justice Commission, and it is there for everyone to come, and I'm honored to also have Dr. Hatem as a member of the commission. It's there for you to bring your complaints and your concerns to, and we will always respond as strongly as we can with the support of the community. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I just wanted to mention Cheryl Davila is running for re-election. Right? So we want to make sure that she's supported, that you support her. You could go into her campaign page, cheryldavila.org.
CherylDavila.vote.
CherylDavila.vote. Make sure to support her. She got elected because she stood her ground. She was on a commission. They removed her from the commission because she took a principled stand, and she ran against the person who removed her from the commission. So you don't have only a person that is talk the talk, but actually walks the walk and is a fighter. So really very important for you to support her and make sure that individuals that are not only connected to the community, but organically come from the community. We're for good government. Just make sure that we are for good government, we're for good people that will actually serve our communities. And it's about time for many of us actually to run and get in as many positions as possible. They're taking our tax money and sending it to the police to arrest us on a regular basis. But I want to speak briefly before we go to the khutbah of Imam Abul Qadir al-Amin. This story, I think it hits at the core of what we're dealing with. In 1825, Haiti paid France, after Haiti gained its independence, what is equal today to $21 billion as a compensation for the French losing their slaves and their territory, which was Haiti. Now, we might think 1825 is a distance from our history. But today, France has a relationship with the 14 Francophone countries, which is 14 African countries. They have to use a currency that the French set up after the end of colonization, and they had to have what's called a colonial contract. The 14 Francophone countries have to deposit their money in the French treasury. So let me repeat that. France colonized these countries, and these countries won their independence after a long struggle, but France said, no, 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 no. You cannot be still independent. You have to actually deposit all your foreign reserves in the French treasury before we allow you actually to engage in the world as an independent country. But that's not even half of it. The French banks give a certain percentage of interest to the Francophone countries' deposits. Okay, that's nice. Again, we're not looking at the Islamic ruling halal or haram, just colonial structures. But if any of these 14 countries want to access their money, they have to take a loan at a higher interest rate from the French banks, which comes out to the following. These 14 African countries that were colonized are subsidizing the French banks and the French treasury to use their own money. On an annual basis, these 14 countries, they put about $500 billion in the French treasury. Without current colonialism, France would be 15th or 17th economy in the world, not among the 5 largest economies in the world. So when they tell you, you need to forget the past, well, we did not even have to overcome the past to be able to forget it to begin with. They tell you, can't we get along? Well, it's nice to say we could get along. You're in the grave, somebody's foot over your neck and a knife in your back, and somebody say, can't we have peace? What type of peace you're asking if you already have buried the person one time over, and you blame them the fact that they actually said, ouch. You're not allowed to say ouch. Your relationship or your principle is to say, as Malcolm said, if the master is sick, you have to say, we sick. You don't even have the agency to say, I am sick. Right? That's a level of erasure that we need to deal with on a regular basis. So when we think of settler colonialism, when we think about the impact of slavery, when we think about the impact of long history of control, it is not the past. Today in the morning I was on a program for the BBC about the destruction of these statues. One of the statues that is in Oxford University. You know, Oxford University, you have to speak sophisticated, you know. You have to drink your tea in the correct way. It has to be the correct temperature. You know, the bread has to be buttered the right way. In the middle of the campus, there is a statue of Cecil Rhodes. Does anybody know this nice gentleman, Cecil Rhodes? He had the audacity to call a country in southern Africa on his name called Rhodesia. Now it's called Zimbabwe. This is the person who actually was in the middle of the scramble for Africa. Between him and the Belgium in Congo, approximately 15 million Africans were completely committed to genocide. Now there was a movement to ask for this statue to be removed. There's about 7 to 8 years of people asking politely, please, Oxford, you're educated, you're a university, you have enlightened books in there you haven't read. Could you take this statue out? No. This is our, history. We just don't want any history to be touched. You're not removing these statues. We know we disagree with him, but, he's part of our heritage. And, at least we're giving you scholarships. You're coming from Nigeria. You have to be in gratitude. We gave you scholarship. We let you sit in our residence. And you're going to be sophisticated, and you go back and you become a minister of something, minister of nothing, that you just send us your deposits. 7 years or 8 years, the movement in Oxford, can you take the statue out? And we're asking politely, using your legal mechanisms, your law. No, and we have actually emails of these, what you call trustees, that are writing, and it's just one of the most racist writings that you can get, not from the past of Cecil Rhodes, but actually trustees of today. Trustees of today, the language they use, even the South will be proud of them today. Then we get the Black Lives Matter movement, and people take matters into their own hands, say, oh, why didn't you resort to the law and ask politely? This is the whole, what you call the discourse of adab. When you ask with adab, right, they laugh at you and send you out. Once things change, then they come and plead for you to be polite and ask politely and resort to the law. Well, if the law was also on top of you, how can you resort to the law that actually wrote your non-existence into the law to begin with? So we just, there are a lot of these discourses that takes place that wants us, what you call, to use courtesy, which basically knowing your place. Knowing your place. All right? So we need to know these mechanisms. Now, the other part I want to speak about is the following. Racism is not about the African and black community. Racism is about the white community that you need to learn their racism. And they need to have not only 12-step program, but one-step program. Erase racism from your mind. Your superiority is nothing. That's the problem. And therefore, when they try to project it on you, they want you to be their psychiatrist. They want you to be their feeling. Not only that you have faced racism, but you need to be their 24 therapist to deal with their racism. And that is written in our curriculum, written in our media, written in our social program, written in our political program. We are acting as therapists for somebody that sees themselves superior to you. And when you actually say no, they want you to take it to a therapist to deal with you because you did not know your place. So we need to begin to challenge this. We need to challenge. The issue of racism is the majority white that still assert their superiority. In a similar way, when we think of anti-Semitism or the Jewish question, it's white European question that they need to deal with their anti-Semitism historically and in the contemporary period. So we have to be really in the forefront in making the change that needs to be changed in our society and not accept the projection of that society problem on us collectively as communities, African American black community first and foremost, and then other communities. I want to finish with the following. What we want to commit ourselves, both as organizations and as individuals, to be committed to anti-racism, structurally and systematically. And again, I want to critique recent Muslims and others that all of a sudden became the super anti-racist people or advocates. It's good, we'll take you, but you need to also take out your historical racism, right? That you were aspiring for a white picket fence in this country. You were aspiring for a shining hill, a shining house and a shining store upon the hill, thinking that doing tawaf around the White House will get you to have an arrival, not realizing that the White House is actually where you get locked up. So we need to make sure that your entry into being anti-racism also involves taking the racist that is inside of you that you want to emulate, and you think to arrive at Eurocentricity and imitating whiteness as a way of arrival is at the essence of your erasure. So this is a moment not only to go and speak of the police violence, the brutality, but also to speak about our own individual brutality that does brutality to ourselves first and foremost, and then in relating to others, because we think that we're doing good, but the medicine you're offering is the poison that is undoing your own life and the communities that are there. That is what's called epistemic, which is a structure of knowledge relative to dealing with racism. If you don't do this, then you're actually replicating the system that you're trying to defeat. Knowing who you are, what you're for, who's actually the people that are with you, and how to create solidarity, this is the moment for us to achieve freedom, dignity, equality, fairness, and the ability to narrate your own story, which is critical. And I will conclude with this saying that I always say, we are often living our life and somebody is narrating our story in a theater piece, and we are supporting actors in our own story. Understand this. We are supporting actors in our own story, meaning your own story is not being narrated, it's somebody else's story. God did not put us in this world to come and bring teacups to somebody's afternoon tea and to exit stage left. We were given to not only to make the tea, to cultivate the tea, to cook the food, and if we don't want someone to get them exit stage left at any time that don't recognize our dignity as a human being. That's how to be the foundation of being anti-racist at this time. So thank you for listening to me. Now we're going to move to do the Jumu'ah prayer, and Imam Abul Qadir Al-Amin, our elder, will give us the khutbah, inshallah. So we will be at the grass area, and I will turn to Sundiata, inshallah, for a few minutes.
Assalamu alaikum. So the sound system is here. I think that if it's all right with everybody, we should just try to do the Jumu'ah prayer right in this area right here. Is that cool with everybody? Yeah. So we'll just try to do it that way. That way we don't have to try to move the sound system, and you know, once the sound system's set up, you just gotta let it ride to the end. And then somebody sent me a text. They said, make sure you mention Omar Said. So Omar Said is the person whose picture is actually on the flyer. And Omar Said was actually from a nation in Africa called Futa Toro. Anybody ever heard of this nation? Yes. So Futa Toro, he actually died in the United States. He was taken into slavery. They had this civil war amongst Africans. And it was prior to the Civil War in America. It started in the year 1776. And it was when the Imam Al-Mami, Abdul Qadir Khan, he emancipated all of the slaves in his nation. And he told the European nations, you cannot transport slaves down the Senegambia River to the coast. If you're trying to come through my nation, we won't allow it. This gave birth to the Abolitionist Movement in Europe and America. All of the abolitionists, they used to call this person El-Mami. El-Mami is the Fulani word for the Imam. They said El-Mami preceded all of the sovereigns of the world in emancipating slaves. Nobody knows who he was because of the color of his skin. So in 1776, we all know about the Declaration of Independence. 41 of the 56 people who signed it owned slaves. But a man who freed all of the slaves in his jurisdiction totally abolished slavery that same year, history doesn't speak about him. What happened for the 30 years after his emancipation was that the Europeans, they armed other Africans who was pro-slavery because they used to make money by selling their brothers and sisters to white folks. And those people actually fought against him, and every time his soldiers lost a battle, they were sold into slavery. They ended up in South Carolina. So you have a history of an anti-slavery movement that came to South Carolina. And nobody knows nothing about these people. But these people was the reason why you have a Frederick Douglass, a Martin Luther King, a Denmark Vesey, a Sojourner Truth, a Ida B. Wells. because they started fighting against slavery in Africa. And that very fight is what led them to America. And Omar Said was born in Futa Toro, and he died in the United States of America. And so this is the history that you ain't gonna learn in school. I went to Berkeley High School. Berkeley High School is the most racist school in California. Berkeley High School would send black students to East Campus.
That's right. Tell it.
If the students dropped out of East Campus, it didn't count as Berkeley High School's dropout rate.
That's right. Tell it.
But if the students graduated from East Campus,
أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. I seek refuge with Allah against Satan, the rejected, with Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. Praise is for Allah, the guardian, evolver, sustainer, and cherisher of all the worlds. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. I witness openly, without reservation, that nothing deserves to be worshipped except Allah. He's one and alone. He's unique, without associates or partners, and there is nothing that is comparable with him. And I witness openly, without reservation, that Muhammad ibn Abdullah, the one to whom the Quran is revealed, that he is the servant and messenger of Allah. Nasta'inahu, nasta'gfirhu, wa nu'minu bihi azza wa jal. We ask Allah for his guidance. We beg Allah for his mercy and his forgiveness. We believe in him. Our complete trust is in him. Mighty and sublime is he. Wa salatu wa salam ala rasuli kareem wa ala ahlihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. We pray that the peace and the blessings be upon the honorable messenger Muhammad, upon his family, his companions, the righteous all. Ameen. Ayyuhal Muslimun, Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, we forever give praise and thanks to Allah. We can't thank him enough for the innumerable favors that he has bestowed upon us. We especially appreciate his opening our hearts and our minds for this noble way of life that we call Al-Islam, and for blessing us to be Muslims. I would like to first Dr. Hatem Bazian and Sundiata and Sister Aliyah and Sister Babala. Thank you. Because I was going to mess that up the way I was looking at it in my mind. But I'm grateful to be here with you. And I don't want to deviate from the theme I've been hearing thus far. So I had already prepared my khutbah with what I thought would be important for us to say at this time. And the historical theme that I keep hearing from everybody who spoke, I want to stay right in accord with that. And I want to give credit to a man that is a controversial figure that many people have a problem with us who give credit to him for starting us on the path to Islam. So I'm talking about that man who introduced to us the idea that history best rewards all research. Now y'all know that that man who made that popular was El-Hajj Malik Shabazz. But it didn't come from him. It came from his teacher. His teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, taught him that history best rewards all research. And one of the historians that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad introduced to Malcolm X and the early community at that time in the 30s, 40s, and the 50s, and even the 60s, he introduced them to J.A. Rogers, a historian. J.A. Rogers has a book, I think it's 2 volumes, maybe it's 3 volumes, World's Great Men of Color. And it was in that particular book that I first learned about this individual that we know in the Quran as Luqman. And he talked about Luqman being an African with curly hair, thick lips, wide nose. He might have looked like me when I had hair. I can't claim that today. But where I want to start the khutbah is with Surah Luqman. This is history that you might not know. In 1945, when Elijah Muhammad was in prison for refusing the draft, he was already 45 years old, so he was too old for the draft when he went to prison. When he didn't participate in the military, his oldest son, Emmanuel, also was locked up. Not only was Muhammad Ali threatened for not going into the draft, all of the men who were in the Nation of Islam at that time who didn't go into the military were also threatened with imprisonment, and some of them actually served time. One of our imams that was very popular in Atlanta, Imam Ibrahim, he also was in prison for not going into the draft. He came into the community when he was 6 years old. His grandmother was in the community living in Cincinnati, Ohio. She moved him into Chicago so he could go to the schools, the Muslim schools that were started by Clara Muhammad and the early women in the Nation of Islam. So why am I giving you that history? I'm giving you that history so that we don't have to think that we owe our indebtedness to somebody who didn't do anything for our growth and development, didn't do anything to help us. They didn't do anything to help us. They didn't come in our poor neighborhoods and invite us to Islam and invite us to stop drinking alcohol, stop using drugs, stop being criminals, stop being irresponsible citizens, but to accept full responsibility for our life. They didn't do that. It was people who looked just like us who did that. So we need to give credit where credit is due. And let me tell you something else about the history of fighting racism. Muslims have always fought racism. There was a minister they tried to drown him down in Monroe, Louisiana. They drowned him for teaching Islam in Monroe, Louisiana. He survived. And then when they got rid of that minister, they sent another minister, and the racists down there said, they sent a big black one this time. And Islam is still in Monroe, Louisiana, because they refused to submit to being ran out of where they were living, ran out of their neighborhood. They stood up for themselves. So we've always fought against racism. Now back to Luqman. In the Surah Luqman, chapter 31, verse 13. Verse 13 says, Inna lishirku ladhulmun adhim. Certainly, shirk is the most oppressive form of racism. Shirk. What is shirk? Joining partners with God. The Quran says that the heavens and the earth be outraged that you say the Beneficent has a son. This idea that God is a man is a problem if you look like that man. And if you believe that idea, then you take on an artificial idea of yourself and your entitlements because of that wrong perception of who you are. And vice versa, if you look at that image, as Imam W.D. Muhammad started a movement back in 1978-79 called the Committee for the Removal of All Images that Attempt to Portray the Divine. We called it the Crade Movement. And we wrote letters to every African American church in the United States of America. We went to them and asked them to look at this idea of God that you have in your places of worship. We wrote them a letter and we asked them the question, what happens to the minds of little black children that sit in churches for 300 years looking at this purported image of God? What does it do to their mind? What does it do to their psychology? And after we wrote the letter, we would meet with them and we would discuss it. And sometimes we would discuss it intelligently. And sometimes it wasn't too intelligent. I remember being invited to San Francisco to the Baptist Ministerial Alliance. And they invited me to talk about racial images. And I pointed to the image and said, this is not an image of God. And a minister jumped up from the front row and rushed the stage and tried to tackle me. And I moved out the way. I didn't let him tackle me. And I said, look, I didn't come here for no foolishness. You can get whooped if you want to. Now, you better put this guy in check because he's about to get hurt. And they're very emotional about that image. Say, that's my Lord and Savior. That's a lie. The Quran says, save yourself and your family. That's our responsibility, to save ourselves. Very important for us to understand the impact that this image has had in the world. The same person who invited me to speak to the ministerial lines, his name is Dr. Reverend Amos C. Brown, Third Baptist Church. After we talked to him about removing the image, they didn't want to remove the image. So we got everybody together, just like we're together here today. Imam Fahim was there, and was others that were there. Imam Wali, if he's here, he was there. We went to his church after discussing with them the significance and the importance of them removing that image from the church, and we picketed his church. Myself and Sharif Salam went inside the church while he was telling his people. He said, what the Muslims are telling you is correct. This image is not the image of Jesus Christ. This is not a true image of Jesus Christ. This was somebody Michelangelo painted. And then eventually he asked us to let him work with his people. And one day they would remove that image from their church. They had a 25-foot image. They removed that image from the church. You go to that church now, that image is not in there because it does psychological damage. Now Abraham, alayhi salam, he argued with his people about idolatry. And he asked them rational questions. He said, what are these idols that you are so devoted to? He said, you make them in the morning and then you pray to them in the evening. He said, that don't make no sense. And then he went into the temples where they had their idols and he destroyed the idols. He was a young man. The old man ain't gonna do that. Old man gonna think about the consequences. He gonna oh no, I might get caught. What might happen to me? But he was a young man. So he took initiative and got rid of the idols. And then after he broke all of the idols except one. He left one idol. He hung the axe on the idol's neck. And then when the people came in, they said, who has done this? Who could have done this to our gods? And the people said, well, we heard a youth named Abraham talk about him. Let's go and bring him. And they brought him to question him about it. And they said, did you do this to our idols? And he was maybe strategic. I didn't want to say slick, because slick has some other connotations, right? He was strategic. He said, perhaps this one did it. He actually held up the hand he did it with. And he pointed to the big idol and said, ask him if he can speak intelligently. He was a witness. Why don't you ask him? So if we ask white people about their being God, and we sit down and have a rational conversation with them, they would admittedly accept that they're not God. They're just flesh and blood human beings. So where did this color identification come in? You know, people change history all the time to suit whatever their scheme is. Right now they say the prophet said there's no superiority between the black and the white. He didn't say that. That's changing the language to suit modern times. He said there's no superiority between the black and the red. And he also said he was sent to the black and the red. Who is the black and the red? All of the people. You either get black in the sun or you get red in the sun. That's all. That's what happens to everybody who stay in the sun long enough, and you'll see its effect on it. So what am I saying? I'm saying this, that the language has shifted. And sometimes the language shift is a part of perpetuating the racism. Right now they say people of color, and we buy into it. We say the people of color. We buy into the language. When we talk about people of color, we're talking about black, brown, yellow, right? The people of the islands, and then everybody else is white. Well, that's a false position. There's something wrong with that position. They don't have no color? Why do we call everybody else people of color and not them? They got blonde hair, brown hair, yellow hair. These young ones got blue hair. Right? They have color too, but we have accepted a language of divisiveness that we help perpetuate. No, we should call them what they are, human beings that have bought into a system that's oppressive, and they want to sustain it, so they want to continue it operating as it is, and we unwittingly keep it propped up. So we need to carefully examine the language. I don't use the word phobia associated with Islam. I just don't do it. Got my own reasons. That's like police pull me over and they scared of me. Well, should I call myself some kind of phobia because they're scared of me? No, I'm a human being. I'm who I am. If they got fear of me, that's their problem. They need to go and see that psychiatrist. See what we're talking about. That therapist they need to talk to. They don't need to, I don't need to fix that for them. They need to fix that for themselves. So we don't want to perpetuate this racism that exists and this divisiveness that exists. And I'm a Muslim. I'm a Muslim by virtue of a certain experience that I had that caused me to value and appreciate Islam. And I learned that from people who look just like me. Not one of them was a scholar. Not one of them had gone to university. Not one of them had went overseas and studied. But they was in my neighborhood night and day inviting us to change our life and to use Islam as the basis for doing that. And it worked. Everybody ain't going to college, but everybody should want to get married have children, have grandchildren, own property, own some business in your neighborhood, influence some things in your neighborhood, in your town, in your city. And Berkeley has always been a weird place. You know that. You know, the only time we used to come here was for fun. Berkeley was a fun place to come to. Wasn't nothing serious happening in Berkeley. Back to Lukman. Elijah Muhammad wrote a letter to W.D. Muhammad when W.D. Muhammad was 12 years old. In that letter, it said, to join partners with God is the serious crime. And if your parents try to get you to do something that's against what you know about God, don't follow them, but still keep good relations with them. That's the Quran. His father wrote him that. So when people who challenged W.D. Muhammad when he became the leader of the Nation of Islam and began to strategically make changes, he said, well, if you're upset with me, you should be upset with my father. Because he's the one who taught me. And he taught him that the Holy Quran was a perfect book. He taught him that he was to use his own mind to seek solutions. And he didn't even want to interfere with his thinking. He said, because the next man, the next leader, should be able to follow his own mind, and I don't want to give you no ideas about what job you got to do. Oh, that was a wise man. And I love him. I pray for him. Pray for him all the time. Matter of fact, it's a Sadaqah Jariyah that I still pray. That benefits him. Because I learned my prayers from him. History. We still own it. And we need to give credit to him, who was a man who changed his position over time. He put the son that didn't agree with his idea of God in charge of his community. Actually, 3 years before he died. Some people just say, oh, February 1975, W.D. Muhammad started changing everything. No, W.D. Muhammad, 3 years before that, his father brought him back into the community after putting him out 2 or 3 times. Brought him back into the community, and he went all over the country telling people, I'm the next man. And I'm changing things. And you can like it or not. And he said some nice things too. Sometimes he said it in a nice way. And he wasn't a coward. He stood up for what he believed. And he believed La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And he believed in empowering the community to take responsibility for their life and their future. And that's what we have to do today. Now, Juneteenth, the people in Oklahoma and Texas didn't find that slavery had been abolished for 2 years. So some people benefited greatly of having free labor for another 2 years. And there's a lot of things that you find out about after the fact. And you can look back on it and say, well, if I'd have knew that, I could have made a whole lot more progress. Maybe not. The fact that it happened, we have to acknowledge that that's part of history. There are things that have happened here in America with African American Muslims, and some of you think that we're irresponsible somehow, and that's why we don't have more institutions. No, because the laws that they enacted to prevent the recently freed slaves, the laws that they enacted with the banking system to prevent us from being able to finance our future are the same laws that the banks are using today. They call it redlining. You can go to the bank with a great business plan and you got a great credit and all that, and you still don't get your project financed because of racism. Systemic racism. Sundiata mentions Fillmore. Man, there used to be so many black people in Fillmore, you would feel like you was in Harlem. They used to call it the Harlem West. And now you go to the Fillmore, and it's no more. The Fillmore is no more. Because of what? Because of policies, because of legislation, because of the redevelopment strategy. For years, all of those homes that used to be in the Fillmore, that's where we used to hold the Juneteenth celebration. All them vacant lots over there on Fillmore, where Safeway is, where the Fillmore Auditorium is, where all of those buildings are right now, that used to be vacant lots. That's where we used to hold the Juneteenth. And then when they developed those properties, we couldn't afford to be there. My father-in-law had 2 businesses on Fillmore Street. Harry Sanders, he had an electrician shop there, and he also had a restaurant there. Can't afford to be on Fillmore now because of the policies. So how can we remedy that? We need to do like we're doing now. We got an African-American mayor over there that believe in investing in the African-American community. We should support London Breed because she's a strong African-American sister, grew up in the projects, right there in the Fillmore. The projects they used to call OC, out of control. They was out of control. You go in there, you're taking your life into your own hands at a certain period. But what has happened is people have evolved. Not necessarily everybody has evolved. We've evolved. We become more conscious. We become more responsible. But that doesn't mean that the racists have evolved. Some of them still hold their same ideas and views. So we still have to continue to interact with people and introduce Islam. And Islam, don't lie about Islam. They say Islam is colorblind. I don't believe that's true. You don't believe that's true. Matter of fact, when them zakat envelopes come over here, they don't never reach the African-American leaders. Those zakat resources that have came from the Middle East and Africa and Turkey and other places in Syria where there are people that have tremendous amount of wealth, none of those resources reach organizations led by African-American leaders. None. So from 1975 to 2000, when was the 911? 2001? From 1975 to 2001, $1 billion came into the United States of America to help Islam. $1 billion. And they investigated the organizations that received those monies. Not one of them had an African-American leader. None of us received any of that money. So don't tell me Islam is colorblind. Quit lying. And when it's colorblind, then some checks should start flowing our way. I'm serious. To help us buy some land, to help us develop some projects. That's going to benefit everybody, because when we open our mass years are not just for black people. Though I'm black and I love being black, I can't imagine being nothing else. But I'm not what you see on the outside. I'm who I am on the inside. I'm my beliefs, I'm my values, I'm my principles, I'm my morals, I'm my ethics. That's who I am. So don't just think, oh, he's a black man, so you can stereotype me. This is one black man that don't eat barbecue. I don't like barbecue. Barbecue makes me sick. There's something about it, I don't know what, but it don't rest with me. Now, I love watermelon. But you can't stereotype people. You can't say that all of this group are this way or that way, you know. And know that in order for us to acquire freedom and to have our freedom, it's not going to be easy. Freedom is never easy. Muhammad the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if anybody should have had it easy, it would have been him. And Allah revealed to him, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. And certainly we have created you in toil and struggle. Now, he created you in toil and struggle. He created you in difficulty, saying, you are a free man. لَا أُقْسِمُ بِهَذَا الْبَلَدِ وَأَنْتَ هِلٌّ بِهَذَا الْبَلَدِ وَلِدِّهُ وَوَالِدِ لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. Certainly you are a free man in the city. And you have rights in the city. The idea of being free is from the word halal. The same root for halal is the root for freedom. And our freedom is associated with us being lawful. The early teacher of Islam in America, now I'm talking about this immigrant brother by the name of W.D. Farad, when he brought Islam into the black bottom part of Detroit in the 30s, when he introduced Islam, he gave the individuals who accepted to be members of his community, he gave them an ID card. Kind of like this one. But not just like this one. This one is a California ID. But I'm going to pull it out to make my point. The ID card said, the said bearer of this card is a Muslim. If you find his behavior other than that of lawful behavior, take the card and punish the bearer. So the early followers of Mr. W.D. Farad, or Wali Farad Muhammad, he used a lot of different names, and actually a sister by the name of Fatima Sanusi did a study and said it was actually 3 people who came here from Pakistan with the mission of introducing Islam into the black community, and they had a strategy. And so 3 people played that role. One of them happened to live in this part of California later on in life. And his name was Muhammad Abdullah, Imam Muhammad Abdullah. His son said, I hear that you people, he said, you people. I'm okay with that. He said, you people say that my father was W.D. Farad. Bilal was with me. I got a witness over there. I said, yeah, we do say that. He said, but he's not W.D. Farad. I said, have you ever did anything you didn't tell your children? He started laughing so hard that Bilal told him, okay, go get the Hennessy out the back room. But I went on to ask him, where were you in 1930? He wasn't even alive in 1930, so he couldn't deny it. Because his father didn't tell him that that was a role he played, doesn't mean that that wasn't him. And I heard him on another occasion tell a person that he came to America July 1930, found Elijah Muhammad and put him on the job. And then we went on and had some other conversation. The person asked him, he said, when did you say you came to the United States? He said, 1955. And he laughed. Why am I sharing that history? Because everything in the history books, you're not going to find it in the history books. There are some things that are left best unsaid. Reason we don't want to leave that unsaid is because Elijah Muhammad gets the discredit for having Islam that wasn't true Islam. But he was a person who had a 3rd grade education, and he learned it from somebody else who was an immigrant. So he didn't know Islam. But as he got to know Islam, he began to change things. And then he also had an understanding that his job was not to teach the religion. He said his job was to clean us up. And he did that. He cleaned us up. He got us out of the behavior that we were involved in that was very self-destructive behavior. He taught us how to eat. He taught us how to pray. He taught us how to fast. He said that one day we would learn the book One day we would learn the book in the original language. And his teacher leave that for your children. So we have that happening today. I'm grateful to be here. I hope I didn't go all over the place. But Bill, we value our history. And our history is legitimate. And I was a Muslim from the day I said I intend to be a Muslim. I have never changed that. I have never said, oh, this wasn't Islam proper. Well, what you doing ain't proper either. I know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. You know you fall short of being what we're supposed to aspire to. None of us are on the level of Muhammad the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I'm no sheikhs, no scholars, any of them up there with him. Everybody is beneath him. And the only thing above him is Allah's revealed word. And it was revealed to him. So you can't separate him from the word. He was the word. And we love Islam. We're not going to do nothing different. One day we're going to have so much influence in America that this park will be too little for the Muslims to gather. That day is coming. I was talking with some pioneers the other day, talking about history. I was talking with Salahuddin Ali Akbar and Jervis Muwakil. Both of them became Muslims in this area in 1956, 57, 58. Man, I was barely in elementary school. So they can tell me something about our history here that I don't know because I wasn't here. And if you want to know something about the historical struggles of Islam in America, talk to some of us that was around here long enough to have participated in some of that. And be humble. I love my brothers from everywhere. You know, I'm a human being. Friends everywhere. Palestinian brother was trying to tell me about Malcolm X one day. And he kept on trying to tell me about Malcolm. I said, what did you say you wanted to know? What did you say you wanted to know about Malcolm? You should be asking questions instead of trying to tell us about our own history. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. ربنا اتيني في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Our Lord, grant us excellence in this life and excellence in the life to come, and save us from the punishment of the fires of sin. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. Our Lord, let not our hearts deviate after you have guided us, and have mercy on us and provide for us from your own presence, for certainly you are the most liberal provider. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء ربنا اغفر لوالدي والمؤمنين يوم الحساب. Our Lord, make us to keep up prayers, and our offspring too. Our Lord, accept our prayers, grant protection to us, to our parents, and to the faithful on the day when the reckoning will be taken. Ameen. Dear believers, brothers and sisters, we thank Allah for being in the Bay Area. You know, the Bay Area is a unique place. We have a lot of cooperation with one another. And, you know, Bay Area is small. You know, if you throw a rock in the bay, you get wet on both sides, right? Because it's that small. It's not big like some places. You go to Houston, anywhere you go in Houston, it takes you an hour and a half to go anywhere in Houston because it's so spread out. But they have cooperation and harmony with one another also. And it's because of the kind of leadership that we have. So I want to take my hats off to the leaders here. Sundiata, Imam Fahim, Imam Wali, Sheikh Abdul Rauf trying to hide, Hatem Bazian, and there are other leaders here. Where's Jamal at? I see Jamal over there. Amir from Vallejo, Jamal Pratt. You know, and we work together because what we have to do as a community, it requires that we give cooperation and support to one another. We don't live in a silo. We all are affected by what goes on around us. So we pray that Allah will continue to bless us with the right spirit and appreciation for cooperation and for doing things together. And we want to be able to protect our community and make progress for those coming behind us. You know, the brother introduced me as an elder on the way up here, you know, and I begrudgingly accept that. You know, we don't want to get old, but in reality, some of the work that we've been doing, we done got old in doing it, but we still have the spirit to do it. But it's also feel good when somebody else, you can see somebody else drive the car, and you can just sit back and enjoy the ride. So you young men, I don't call y'all youths. I don't know where y'all get this youth stuff and y'all 45 and 50 years old. I stopped being a youth at 16. I had to man up and carry my weight as an individual with some responsibility for finance in my house. So let's not hold on to youth too long. It's a blessing to get old. And I done got old. And I'm blessed. Alhamdulillah. Iqama Salah. I got some structural problems. So I'm going to ask Sheikh Abdul Rauf, my senior, to come and lead the prayer. Please, Sheikh. Yes. Assalamu alaikum. We want to make dua for Angie and Yasin. We ask that Allah will give them healing and comfort during their time of difficulty. They've been recently diagnosed with cancer. We ask that Allah will bless them with healing and recovery from that disease and continue to have mercy and strengthen the family. Ameen. Sheikh. Yeah, he's here.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala al-falah. Kaqamati salat, kaqamati salat. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
A lot of paraphernalia, huh? Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين إن أبرار لفي نعيم وإن الفجار لفي جحيم يصلونها يوم الدين وما هم عنها بغائبين وما أدراك ما يوم الدين ثم ما أدراك ما يوم الدين يوم لا تملك نفس لنفس شيئا والأمر يومئذ لله الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. والسماء والطارق وما أدراك ما الطارق النجم الثاقب إن كل نفس لما عليها حافظ فينظر الإنسان مما خلق مما نطفق يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب إنه على رجعه لقادر يوم تبلى السرائر فما له من قوة ولا ناصر والسماء ذات الرجع والأرض ذات الصد إنهم لقول فاصل وما هو بالحظ إنهم يكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا فمهل الكافرين أمهلهم رويدا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. التحيات لله والصلوات والطيبات. السلام عليكم. السلام عليكم. إن شاء الله. وبارك لمحمدك في العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. اللهم آمين. الله أكبر.
Inshallah, if you could do the sunnah, and then we're going to listen to Imam Fahim Shuaib, inshallah, so give a few minutes.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين نستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به عز وجل واشهد ان لا اله الا الله واشهد ان سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى اله وصحبه اجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa Jumu'ah Mubarak. I wanted to catch everybody before they go. I really only want to make an announcement. We have had the lecture. Today was the lecture. Today was the talk. And beautiful talk, beautiful information, beautiful enlightenment. All of us learned something new that we didn't know before. But let me bring something to your mind, and I want you to understand. You all know, those of you who know me, you know, it's like I'm not a punch puller, you know, I'm not trying, it's not a popularity contest. It's like Imam Al-Amin, alhamdulillah, like we kind of, I know this is probably wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway. We kind of reached Muslim menopause.
Muslim man menopause, Muslim leading man menopause. And the little bit that I do know about menopause, or I've accepted whatever it is, if it's a stereotype, it's like you get to a point where you say, you know what, I'm too old to have to go for all that. So it's like, miss me with that. So sometimes my attitude may come across like, man, why he's so vinegary? Why he's so blah, blah, blah? Why is he always trying to correct people? Because look, we've been doing this thing for 40 years and more. And so there are things that has to be done. And what happens? Everybody likes to party, but nobody likes to clean up. Everybody likes to do the soft stuff and don't want to do the quote-unquote hard stuff. Everybody want to talk the talk, but you got to walk the walk. Let me tell you what I'm getting to. There's 20 tons of food coming to 1747th Avenue tomorrow. That's with a T. 20 tons is going to roll up in East Oakland with fresh fruits and vegetables that's got to be moved. And it's from the Zakat Foundation. Alhamdulillah, we congratulate everybody else involved with that. When you got on Martin Luther King Boulevard coming off 580, and you see that encampment over there, and that's just one of many in Oakland. That's how they're living. They're every day. That's their address. They got furniture, and they got tables, and they got mirrors, and they got baskets of things that represent their cabinets. That's how they live. They live in a situation where they're almost competing with the stray cats and dogs. No human being should have to live that way. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to us, أَرَّأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدْعُ الْيَتِيمَ وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَّلِينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. That is, woe to the one who prays just to be seen. Oh, I was at the Jumu'ah. Was you at the Jumu'ah? Yeah, I was at the Jumu'ah, man. It was good. Okay, that's the talk. Now it's time to walk. As the man pointed out, you can't separate Prophet Muhammad from the Quran because he's the Quran walking. He is the Quran Yamshi walking. He didn't talk the talk. He walked the walk and talked the talk. So when those 20 tons of fresh fruits and vegetables roll up to 1747th Avenue tomorrow, and we need to have a line of 2,000 lined up to take away those 1,575 25-pound boxes, then take them to places like that. Get your truck, get your van, fill up your trunk, and drive to all of these homeless encampments. And if they can't consume them in such a way that they won't be able to take them all, the point is some of them will not have any fresh fruits or any fresh vegetables this year, this time, if we don't provide it for them. People complain about East Oakland and other areas such as this being food deserts. Well, here comes 20 tons of food into the food desert. How much of it are you going to come and get and take out and distribute? I'm putting it in your face. You know when you drive by these places that these people are living at a level that's right equal to the animals. And you know that they could benefit, even if it's for a day, from that 25 pounds of fresh fruits and vegetables. So think about those places that you know, you say, oh, it's so terrible. Oh, look at all these people. Okay, what you doing? Come get that food and distribute it to that. So you should have it in your mind. Think about where you live in the city and think about those places. I think about places like just MacArthur Boulevard, just before the Kaiser Hospital exit, you're coming off 580 that way. Right under the freeway, you have that whole encampment there. I believe, I'm not sure, I have to find out. Over there by the Coliseum, it looks like they've set up like trailer homes or something like that. And that's really to accommodate people who would otherwise be homeless. Somebody needs to be taking a bunch of this over there so that those people living in those places will have access to that food. I'm putting in your mind, I want you to picture, where are some of the places that could use a 25-pound box of fresh fruits and vegetables? 20 tons. We can't move it by ourselves.
It is a collective effort. And said, and the verse that I began to recite, and it said, and they failed to even, at the end, it says, and they failed to even provide the food pot. Ma'oon. They want to be seen, but when it comes time to feeding and providing neighborly needs, nowhere to be seen. So I say again, as I've said before, need to stop fronting. Need to stop fronting. Let's stop the Islamic fashion show. Let's make it happen. In the fashion of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, your face should be seen in the place. 1747th Avenue, coming to get between 9:30 and 12:30, coming to load up your trunk, coming to load up your van, coming to load up your truck, so that you can roll out somewhere in Berkeley, in Oakland, and all the other surrounding areas to move that 20 tons of food. Get your share of the 1,575 boxes of 25 pounds of fresh fruits and vegetables. That's all I got to say. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Thank you.
Like Imam Fahim said, tomorrow at Masjid Waters to Dean, they'll have these boxes of fresh produce.
This is a poem. I'll do my classic, just to remind everybody of Black history and Islam. Love you too. 'Cause I'm black, like the first man who called the Idan. I'm African like the Emperor of Ethiopia. I'm dark like the night when it penetrates the day. Prophet Adam, peace be upon him, was made with dark clay. I won't partake in these evil ways of the junior. Pardon me, because these bright lights will ruin you. Confusion, I can't entertain plain Jane raunchiness. They taking shots at us, say it's because God we trust, but they ain't talking about the Most High. They talking about the one eye underneath the dollar sign, lies and rumors to consumers. But the truth is every 28 hours a brother's assassinated. Others incarcerated. The system we live in is jaded, so we banging and we banging and we banging on the door. Government, we don't want wars or the undercovers y'all put forth. It's time to move forward. No more puppets to put forward, because black people will not stand for it. Hey, thank you so much.